everybody, it's Mel. Thank you so much for joining me today for Willow Talks Books, Made Me Do It. So this is the third in a series of vlogs that I have been doing on my channel this year. And the idea behind these vlogs is that I choose a booktuber and I choose a few books of theirs that they are really into, that they really enjoy, or somehow that they inspired me to pick up or want to read. Like I said, this is the third of its type, so I have done two previously. I read 3 books that I was inspired to read by Katie Colson, and I read 3 books that I was inspired to read by Victoria from What Victoria Read. So I will link both of those vlogs in the description below. In this vlog, I'll be reading 3 books that I was inspired to pick up by Willow from Willow Talks Books. I found Willow sometime towards the end of last year. I can't remember what it was that I was looking for, but I was looking for something in particular about a topic, and I came across one of Willow's videos and I found it to be incredibly articulate, incredibly intelligent, thoughtful, thought-provoking, and I just really enjoyed the way that they talk about books and the way that they analyse books, but not just books, the bookish universe in general, I guess, like how different readers approach books and why, marketing behind books, what the purpose of different books are, what we want to get out of them, what it's intended for us to get out of them, all of those sorts of things. They are just incredibly articulate and analysing and speaking about what they think. So I've really enjoyed delving into their channel and watching a variety of different of their videos. They do all sorts of different videos, occasionally a tag, vlogs, they do monthly wrap-ups, they do TBRs, they do like lists of books, like the best Greek mythology retellings and different things like that, book reviews, all those sorts of things. And while I haven't watched every single video of theirs, I have watched quite a few now and I have really, really enjoyed all of them. So because they are so articulate, I find them very persuasive in their views, which means that there's been quite a number of books that I have been quite interested in reading after hearing them talk about, or that I have already read myself and really enjoyed their analysis of those books. So they did do 10 of the best Greek mythology retelling video. I don't know if that's exactly what it's called, but it was something like that. And of the 10 that I read from their list, I thoroughly enjoyed them all and I agree with everything they said about those books. So I said, I think in Katie Colson's video, that Katie Colson was one of the people that inspired me to make these vlogs in the first place. Willow was one of the other people that inspired me to make these vlogs. So yeah, it figures that they would be one of the first of the type. I did also do Victoria's in the middle because I wanted to, but here we are doing a vlog, I should say, inspired by Willow from Willow Talks Books. So what books will I be reading? First up, I will be reading Inkblood Sister Scribe by Emma Tors. So this is a book that I had seen around on BookTube a little bit towards the end of last year. I've seen a few different people mention them as being one of their new favourite books, something they really enjoyed. So it wasn't new to me at all when I heard Willow talk about this book, but the way that they described it made it sound really, really interesting and engaging. They were so invested in the storyline. They thought it was incredibly cleverly written. They really enjoyed the characters and they just made it sound like it was going to be really interesting and right up my alley. So I picked it up on the basis of hearing Willow talk about it. As I said, I had been vaguely interested in it previously because other people had talked about it, but it was really Willow talking about it that made me want to pick it up. So let's see what this book is about. Joanna Calatay lives alone in the woods of Vermont, the sole protector of a collection of rare books that will allow someone to walk through walls or turn water into wine. Books of magic. Her estranged older sister, Esther, moves between countries and jobs, constantly changing, never staying anywhere longer than a year, desperate to avoid the deadly magic that killed her mother. Currently working on a research base in Antarctica, she has found love and perhaps a sort of happiness. But when she finds spots of blood on the mirrors in the research base, she knows someone is coming for her, and that Joanna and her collection are in danger. If they are to survive, Esther and Joanna must unravel the secrets their parents kept hidden from them, secrets that span centuries and continents, and could cost them their lives. So yeah, I think it sounds fantastic. I think it sounds like right up my alley. And like I said, Willow made it sound amazing. I think what particularly drew me to what Willow was saying was that it was more clever than you expect, because this kind of type of book, some of the tropes that are mentioned in the back here, aren't particularly unique. So it could easily be a book that falls short of the mark. But Willow felt that it was just so cleverly done, so well put together. So I'm really, really interested to see what I think of it. The next book that I will be reading for this project is Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. This is quite a short little book. How many pages are we? 110. So it's quite a little novella. Don't really know a huge amount about it. So it says, it is 1985 in an Irish town. During the weeks leading up to Christmas, Bill Furlong, coal and lumber merchant, faces his busiest season. As he goes round the houses making deliveries, he feels the past rising up to meet him and encounters the complicit silences of a small community controlled by the church. So it sounds like something that I'd be interested in. It doesn't sound like something I'd be super compelled to pick up, but again, hearing Willow talk about this book, they made it sound just so well written again, so intelligent, so thoughtful. They have a whole video about Claire Keegan and what a genius author she is. So I'm really excited to read it and see what is so amazing about this book, what is so fantastic about the way that she writes. Yeah, so I'm very, very excited to pick this one up. I don't think I'd ever heard of it. I literally put it on my wish list because of hearing Willow talk about it. And it was sent to me. I usually put the notes in the cover, but I haven't done so for this one. I'm pretty sure it was sent to me by Tracy, so thank you so much, Tracy. But if it wasn't Tracy, if it was someone else, please let me know. But yeah, I just think it's going to be really interesting. It sounds like it could be quite interesting. It just doesn't sound like something that I would immediately love the way that Inkblood Sister Scribe sounds, but like I said, Willow made it sound incredible, and it's quite little, so it won't take me a super long time to read, even if I'm not loving it, but I'm excited to see what I think of it. Also, I should say that another book of Claire Keegan's, which I cannot remember, I think it's The Foster Child or something like that, was made into a movie, and I've seen that movie and I liked that movie, so yeah. And then the third and final book that I'd like to read for this vlog is The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. This is a fairly well-known book. I believe it was written 1989, so it's been around for quite a while and is quite well-known. And Kazuo Ishiguro is one of Willow's favourite authors of all time. That really intrigues me. This is a book of theirs that I have particularly been interested in reading on and off, not like, desperately, but I've been interested in reading it for a while, partly because there's a movie of the book with Anthony Hopkins and Emma Thompson, who are both actors that I really appreciate. I've not watched the movie, I just didn't ever watch it, and then now I'm like, no, I'll wait until I've read the book. So I have been interested in Kazuo Ishiguro's writing and this book in particular for a while, but knowing now that it is one of Willow's favourite authors, and this book in particular is one of their favourite books from this author, has really intrigued me, and I'm very keen to see why. Willow reads a lot of translated fiction, reads a lot of Japanese translated fiction, so I'm intrigued to see what it is about this author in this book that is so meaningful to them, what they like about it so much. But yeah, so that is the third book I'll be reading. Goodreads has just, I don't have it, I'll have to borrow it from the library. So Goodreads says, in the summer of 1956, Stevens, a long-serving butler at Darlington Hall, decides to take a motoring trip through the West Country. The 6-day excursion becomes a journey into the past of Stevens and England, a past that takes in fascism, 2 world wars, and an unrealised love between the butler and his housekeeper. So it sounds like it potentially will be kind of literary fiction, literary historical fiction, and potentially quite moving. So yeah, I'm intrigued to read it and excited to see what I think of it. So those are the 3 books that I'll be reading throughout the vlog. It is middle of June at the moment, and I am planning on picking up Inkblood Sister Scribe reasonably soon because I think it will fit into a prompt for a readathon that I'm doing at the moment. But anyway, not sure about the other 2, but I'm hoping to read them in not too far away from each other, and yeah, you will see me jump in and talk about the books and potentially reading them, and yeah, different things like that. You know how vlogs go. But anyway, I'll talk to you. I'm just about to start Inkblood Sister Scribe. So I will let you know how we go. Peanut! Peanut! I was going to update you guys when I got to halfway, but I'm almost halfway anyway, but it just got really interesting. It was already really interesting. I'm really, really enjoying it. I think it's incredibly well written, and yeah, I'm really enjoying it, but something just got revealed that is very creepy and interesting and changes some stuff. So yeah, I'm very intrigued to know what's going to happen. And yeah, like I said, I'm really, really enjoying it. I think it's very well written and really interesting. And yeah, I'm very glad to be reading it. Don't have much else to say, but I just wanted to jump in and sort of talk about the fact that, like I said, something has just been revealed that changes a few things, assumptions, or suggests a few other assumptions, and is really, really interesting. So I'm excited to see where it's going to go. Hi. This chair is rolling. Hi. So I am joined by Pistachio today. Say hi. So you may be able to hear the purring. But anyway, I just finished Inkblood Scribe, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was really, really well written. I really liked the characters, I really liked the mystery, I really liked everything, basically. I haven't run it through Corpal yet, but I think it'll be between 4 and 5 stars. But yeah, really, really enjoyed it. So I don't know if I actually... I talked about it in the middle and said that I was enjoying it, but I don't think I actually went into any amount of detail about it. It's the middle of the Amazing Readathon run by Bree from Four Paws in a Book, so I am trying to read a bit quicker than I normally would, which means I'm not necessarily stopping to talk to the camera, but also I just haven't really been in the mood for filming very much, so that's why I haven't jumped in and said anything. Not because I haven't been enjoying it, I've definitely been enjoying it, as I said. So we follow a few characters. We follow Joanna and Esther, who are sisters, and their family have this magical book collection, and Joanna can do magic and Esther can't do magic, and they have been keeping these books and keeping their they have wards that keep people from being able to find the house and the books, and so their father died and Joanna was left in charge of keeping the wards going. A few years prior to their father dying, Esther had left the house and not come home, and been travelling around and picking up odd jobs and moving all the time. And then we also follow this character called Nicholas, and Nicholas is a scribe, and what that means is that his blood is magical. So magic doesn't have an effect on him, but he can write these books, which are spells, basically. He can't activate the spells, other people have to activate the spells, but his blood is what's used to write the books. And he lives in the UK in this really big, prestigious house that's attached to this library, which has all these books that have been written over centuries by various scribes. And they don't know about each other, but there might be a connection. And it's basically them trying to figure out what's going on. And Esther was told by her father that she needs to move. Esther has been told by their father that she needs to move once a year in November. Every November she needs to move. She doesn't really know why. But it turns out that she is, so spoilers, I will put the spoiler sign up. And when I take it down, that's when you should come back if you don't want to have spoilers. But anyway, she's also a scribe, but she didn't know. So her and Joanna don't really know that much about what's going on. But it turns out that her father and the library are connected. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. Like I said, I thought it was incredibly well written. I really liked the characters. All the different characters were written really, really well. There was, at the very end, there was something that happened that I knew would happen. Like, it was set up so that you'd think that it wouldn't happen, but it kind of was obvious that it was going to. But even though it was obvious, it still worked really well. The only thing that I was a bit kind of like, was a little romantic subplot that happened. But I mean, it wasn't like, it didn't badly affect the book or anything. It didn't make it, you know, unreadable or anything like that. But it just was kind of like, like I didn't need it, and I could have quite happily gone without it, but yeah, not bothered that it was there, if that makes sense. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this book. I'm really glad that I've read it. I had a feeling that I would really like it. So yeah, highly recommend. Like I said, I've been kind of not entirely in the mood for filming, which probably doesn't work very well when you are creating a vlog. So sorry about that. But everything's fine. I'm just, you know, when you get into those moods. But anyway, yeah, I'm really glad I read it. I'm really glad that this vlog has made me read it. I was intending at some point to read it, obviously, but I'm glad to have picked it up now. And yeah, I think I'm going to move into the Claire Keegan book now. Well, not right now, but like that's the next book I'll read for the vlog. I'll try and be a bit more available and updating. But that's quite a small book, so we'll see. But anyway, yeah, that's how we're going, and I guess I'll go because I don't really have much to say, even though I just finished a book. I feel like I should have more to say, but like, I thought it was great. Anyway, yeah, so I'll go and I'll talk to you later. So, I'm about to start Small Great Things by Claire Keegan. So yeah, I am a little bit hit and miss with literary fiction. I believe this is literary fiction. It was shortlisted for the Booker Prize in 2022, which should tell you that it is literary fiction. I love the cover, if that's anything to go by. So we'll see how we go, but I'm crossing my fingers that I can trust Willow. I do believe that I can. They certainly have steered me right with Inkblood Sister Scribe. They certainly have a very similar opinion to many of the books we have both read that I do, so we'll see how we go. But I'm hoping to get this finished today. It's not super long, it's 110 pages long, so I should be able to finish it reasonably quickly. I have an appointment this morning and I often have to sit in the waiting room for a little while, so I reckon I'll get a fair bit read then. So I will jump in hopefully halfway through. Anyway, I'll hopefully jump in at some point throughout the reading experience, but either way, I'll definitely catch up with you when I'm done. So, okay, so I just finished the book, and yeah, it's actually quite a lot. A lot happens in this book. A lot is referred to in this book to do with, like I was saying, the Catholic Church and to do with the convent, and it's all based on true things that happened in Ireland. So it says in the back, it's got author's note, and it says, "This is a work of fiction based in no part on any individual or individuals. Ireland's last Magdalen laundry was not closed down until 1996. It is not known how many girls and women were concealed, incarcerated, and forced to labour in these institutions. 10,000 is the modest figure, 30,000 is probably more accurate. Most of the records from the Magdalen laundries were destroyed, lost, or made inaccessible. Rarely was any of these girls' or women's work recognised or acknowledged in any way. Many girls and women lost their babies. Some lost their lives. Some or most lost the lives they could have had. It is not known how many thousands of infants died in these institutions or were adopted out from mother and baby homes. Earlier this year, the Mother and Baby Home Commission report found that 9,000 children died in just 18 of the institutions investigated. In 2014, the historian Catherine Corliss made public her shocking discovery that 796 babies died between 1925 and 1961 in the Tuam home in County Galway. These institutions were run and financed by the Catholic Church in concert with the Irish state. No apology was issued by the Irish government over the Magdalen laundries until Taoiseach Enda Kennedy did so in 2013. So yeah, it's a lot. It's really, yeah, full on. Knowing that this is based in reality. The actual book itself, like I said, is like fairly kind of slice of life and just kind of follows this man as he goes about his day. But he comes across the girl, and then he decides to try and do something about it, because his mother was unmarried when she was born, when he was born, and so like she could have wound up in a place like that, and it was only because the woman that she worked for decided not to keep her employed and to look after them. So yeah, it's like it packs a lot in a small book, but also in like in terms of like what is happening in the story, it's like kind of not much, but there's actually a lot going on. So it's very, I definitely would recommend. I think that it's really interesting. Like I said before, I wasn't like enjoying it, because it felt kind of like, oh yeah, just this dude doing his rounds, whatever. But it's actually really interesting. So I'm very glad to have read it. And it didn't take long at all. Yeah, so I read the first 24 pages this morning, and then I did a bunch of other things in the middle of the day, and then I started reading again around sort of 3ish. And it's just 4:45 now. So like it probably took me like 3 hours to read the book. I am a very slow reader though, compared to a lot of people. So like it could probably take, depending on how quickly you read, it might take you like an hour, something like that. But anyway, yeah, I recommend. So there's 2 books done. I feel like this vlog is going quicker than the others. Potentially because I didn't read a very long book the second time. But anyway, yeah, so there's 2 books done. I don't know when I'll get to the next book, but obviously I'll check in with you when I'm about to start it, and I'll talk to you then. Hi, I'm just sitting down to start The Romance of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. I have not started it yet, so I don't have anything else to say, but I just want to say hey, and I'm about to start. Okay, so I have read the first chapter, and I'm intrigued. It's written with the bookmark is totally in the wrong place. Written in first person by the butler, who is the main character, and it's set in 1950 something, 1956. He's a butler to an English house. He's a butler to now an American owner of this house, but he used to be the butler to the family that lived in this house and that the house is named after. He's very proper and very old-fashioned, very old school, and it's reading very much of its time, I guess. It was written, well, no, it was written in the 80s, so it's reading very much like something you might find in like a 19th century classic. Not 19th century, 20th century classic. So like Daphne du Maurier or someone like that. It's a bit long, like it's a bit kind of waffly. Like the butler kind of goes on many tangents and stuff, but you get an idea of him and his current situation. So I'm intrigued to see where it's going to go, and yeah, I'll jump in and talk to you about it probably halfway through, but we'll see. Hi. So I want to talk to you about the book, The Reigns of the Day. So obviously that's what I'm currently reading for this vlog. But I'm actually also going to talk about it with After Story by Larissa Brand. Now this is not a book I'm reading for this vlog, but it's a book that I'm concurrently reading with The Remains of the Day. And they're actually somewhat similar. And I thought it would be interesting, even though it's not really part of this vlog, I thought it would be interesting to have a bit of a chat about that, because I'm reading them concurrently and they have a lot of similarities. So, in terms of The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro, I'll first of all just quickly start off by talking, sorry if you heard that noise in the background, that was Pistachio jumping onto a little table desk thing in here, and it's slippery, so she had a little slide. She's now having a little bit of a sniff and a bit of a face rub against my battery. Anyway, very exciting information for you. So, where am I? I am up to page 70 out of 258, so that is approximately a quarter of the way through the book. I'm not loving this book. I don't hate it, there are definitely interesting things about it, but I feel like it's very long-winded. There's a lot of looking backwards, which I know is the point of the book. It does say reflecting on his years of service and re-examining his life. So it is the point of the book that he's going backwards and looking backwards and reflecting on things. But yeah, it just feels really slow, and there's a lot of tangents, which is, I mean, it's not stream of consciousness, but it feels like it sort of is a little bit. And I understand that that's a lot of how that sort of thing is written. I'm going to keep reading it at least some more because it's for this vlog and I want to give it its due. And I mean, 70 pages in, like, a lot of people would DNF at 70 pages in if they weren't loving it. And I would too. But because I'm doing it specifically for this vlog, I want to at least read a bit more. But yeah, we follow this butler who has been given an opportunity by his employer to go on a driving trip around the UK. It is set in the 1950s, I want to say. 1956. Yeah, it's set in the 1950s. So it's in a time of a lot of change happening in Britain. It feels very much like it's I mean, it is a modern classic, favorite modern classics, but it feels very reminiscent of older classics in the way that it's written and the way that it's approached. But yeah, it's about him going on this tour around the countryside, but also looking back in his own past and looking back on his decisions and his experiences and his beliefs in terms of like what makes a good person and a good butler and, you know, all those sorts of things. So it is quite interesting in a sense, but I think it's just very slow. I need to give it its time, basically. But anyway, yeah, so I can see that it's going to potentially get a bit more interesting as we get further into his reflections. Anyway, what I find interesting about Kazuo Ishiguro as well, and I didn't realise this because he is a Japanese person, I assumed that this was going to be written, I mean, it's obviously written by a Japanese person, I assumed it was going to be not quite so very classic British writing, if that makes sense. But it says in the front bit here about Kazuo Ishiguro, was born in Nagasaki, Japan in 1954 and moved to Britain at the age of 5. His novels have earned him many honours. He was given a knighthood in 2018 for services to literature. But yeah, so he grew up in England and did all of his schooling and had all of his formative years in terms of formal schooling in England. So I'm not surprised that this is the way that he's approaching this is very, like I said, very kind of British classic. Now that I know that, but I was surprised to begin with. Now, what I wanted to compare it about After Story is about two, I'm just going to move you slightly, is about two Indigenous women, a mother and daughter, who go on a tour of the UK. They go on a literary tour of the UK and they go to, it's all kind of based around classics. So they go to Jane Austen's house, they go to the Globe, they go to where Virginia Woolf lived and wrote, they go to all these different places like that. They are also reflecting on their lives because they are doing this. The daughter is a lawyer, but she also did English Lit at university, and the mother has lived her whole life in the same town, and they don't have a lot in common, and they've got a lot of family trauma, and so they haven't been very close, and they both want to change that. And the daughter invites the mum to go on this trip, and the daughter's really into it, obviously, because of, you know, her background with English Lit, but the mum doesn't really know much about what's actually the intention of the trip. But yeah, it's about them trying to reconnect, and it's also about them reflecting on their past and what their relationship has been. And I just find it really interesting that they're both going on tours around the UK in these books. Obviously they're set in different times. So this was written, well, copyright is published in 2021, and it's contemporary to when it was written and published. So we have discussions in here, mentions of social media and, you know, mobile phones, and it's much faster paced. It is much more modern than this one. But they're both, like I said, they're both traveling around the UK and reflecting on their past and how that's affected their current life. And I just find it really interesting how very different the approach is, partly because of what they're doing. This one is he's just going a bit of a sightseeing, having a holiday, traveling around, but he also is going to meet up with an old co-worker of his and offer that person a job. And so he views it as like, yes, I'm doing this, but I'm also doing a work. It's also a work holiday, whereas this one is very much a holiday reconnect. But also, I guess, so the butler in this book is English, so there's no like how a Japanese butler would, etc. And like I said, obviously Kazuo Ishiguro's has been very influeed by classic British authors and classic writing in this book anyways. First book I've read of his. So like, and he grew up formative, sorry, what's the word I'm looking for? Formal schooling in the UK. Obviously, being an early childhood educator, I am very much aware and very much a believer in and practicer of the fact that 0 to 5 is one of the most important times of a child's life, and there's so much learning. And I'm not saying, when I say that, I'm not saying that like, oh, he lived till 5 in Japan, but that had no effect on him. Of course it had an effect on him, but in terms of like, that would be more insular in terms of outward things affecting his life, particularly because he's going to school from around 5. That would be where a lot of his more formal thoughts on literature and like, yeah, etc. would have come from. But I also do wonder, as I go through, as I read more, how much whether I'm going to see any kind of like slightly different perspectives on how much his Japanese heritage will affect what he's written about in this book. So this book also, interestingly, is, so Larissa Behrendt is an Indigenous author. The main characters are Indigenous Australian characters, and Larissa Behrendt is a lawyer herself. She's very educated, she's well written, well read. She's written a few books, both non-fiction and fiction. I have read 3 of her books. This is a reread for me. And it's interesting, the 2 different perspectives from the mother and the daughter, because they're both Indigenous. They both have had experiences based on being Indigenous. They both have, what am I trying to say? They both have similar experiences in that regard, in terms of the way that they exist within Australia and the way that they are treated. But obviously their experiences are quite different, because the mother left high school very young when she fell pregnant with one of her children, and has stayed in this one town, and so her life is quite smaller in that regard in terms of travel and experiences outside of family and yeah, immediate life. Whereas the daughter grew up here but then moved to Sydney. She's gone to university, she has studied English literature, she has a great deal of connection to authors who aren't Indigenous and who aren't even Australian, who aren't even based in Australia. And so when they go to the UK, her impressions and her experiences are very different to her mother's, because they both come from a very different place in terms of their relationship to both the UK and in particular the literature. But they both have the same trauma from what happened in the past. Yeah, it's just really interesting, and also like the way that their different upbringings, but also their shared experiences of being Indigenous, is affecting not just them and their lives, but how they approach the travelling around the UK. So I'm interested. I mean, obviously, like I said, the butler is British, so I'll be interested to see how much Japanese, if any, of his Japanese heritage influences how he writes about this. Also, modern versus, 80 years ago is interesting. But yeah, so I wanted to have a bit of a chat about that, even though, like I said, this one is not for this vlog. But I found it interesting that I didn't even think about it when I was was reading this one first, and then I picked this one up. I didn't even think about the fact that I was reading 2 books that actually had quite a similar premise, but I just found it really interesting. So anyway, yeah, I'm going to keep reading this one, but I'm not sure how much I'm loving it, but it's interesting. I'm probably going to get through this one quicker. This one I'm flying through. It's not really part of this vlog, so you won't see it again, but I just wanted to mention it, that if you like the kind of book that this is, where it's like traveling around the world, or traveling around a part of the world, so it's traveling around the UK, reflecting on your experiences, this one could be a really interesting one to read as well. After Story by Larissa Brandt. And I'm going to go now. I'm going to do some more filming for some other videos, and I'll talk to you later. Hi, it is Friday the 19th of June, July even, and I thought that I would jump on and talk to you a little bit more about this one. So I'm now up to page 178, so that means that I am about 2/3, I think, of the way through, and I'm actually enjoying it a lot more than I was at the beginning. It's I've kind of gotten used to the style a little bit more, and gotten used to kind of what I think Kazuo Ishiguro is actually trying to do, and I'm finding that I'm quite enjoying it. That's all I really have to say, but I wanted to just quickly update you. So yeah, that's that. Hello. Excuse the hoodie. I haven't quite managed to get myself up and going yet this morning, but I wanted to film my outro and everything because my plan is, part of the reason why I haven't actually managed to get dressed or anything, is I'm planning to go swimming, and then I will come home and finish editing the vlog so I can go up tomorrow. So I wanted to finish the vlog. So I can't remember when I last spoke to you, but I believe that I was most of the way through Remains of the Day, and I think I was saying that I was actually enjoying a lot more than I had been at the beginning, and that stayed true till the end. I actually ended up quite enjoying it. I think that its main strength is just that it is a really well written book. There's a lot of craft involved, and it's just really like a nice kind of exploration of reflection and thinking about your life and yeah, that sort of thing. So I ended up actually quite enjoying it. I put it through CorePile and it got 7.71, which is 4 stars. So that's pretty good. That's really good rating, especially given that at the beginning I was a bit like, ho hum. So yeah, don't really have much else to say about that book in particular. But how about the vlog? Well, as you know, the point of these vlogs is to explore some books that maybe I wouldn't have read necessarily at the time, anytime soon, or potentially at all. I definitely was very keen to read Inkblood Sister Scribe, as I'm sure you may have been aware. As I'm sure you may have noticed, that was my favourite book out of this vlog, definitely. It's one of my favourite books of the year. I gave it 9, I believe, in CorePile, and 5 stars, which I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was incredibly well written. I thought it was really well paced. I love the characters. I love the mystery. I love the atmosphere. I just thought it was fantastic. Definitely see why Willow loved it so much, and I'm very happy to have been inspired to pick it up by them. Like I said, when I was talking about, I think at the beginning when I introduced the whole concept, neither Inkblood Sister Scribe nor The Remains of the Day are books that I had only heard of because of Willow. And in fact, Inkblood Sister Scribe is one that I was already intrigued by, having heard other people talk about it. But Willow kind of really like hammered home to me that this is a book that sounds like it will be for you. This sounds amazing. You should read it. So I'm incredibly glad that I did. I'm incredibly glad that I picked it up. In terms of the other 2 books, I had not heard of Claire Keegan as an author, except for the fact that Willow, like I said, had this entire video about Claire Keegan and mentioned small great things in other videos as well as being a fantastic novella. I definitely can understand why. I can definitely see that it was very thoughtful. It explored some really hard-hitting topics really, really well. The framing of it was really interesting, and it gave you that little bit of distance from what the story was about so that it wasn't quite so overwhelming as it could have been, but it was still packed a punch and still, you know, made you really think. So I definitely understand why Willow likes it so much. For me though, as much as I appreciate all those things, it just wasn't something that really grabbed me. It was very slow. It was very kind of stream of consciousness, slice of life. I don't know that those things all together in one book work for me. So that's kind of dragged it down a bit. It was just a bit out of my kind of comfort zone in terms of style of writing that I appreciate. But I'm very glad I read it. I definitely think that it will stay with me as a learning experience in terms of that historical period. So yeah, it was definitely interesting, and I would highly recommend if those things sound interesting to you. And then the final book, obviously, The Remains of the Day by, I have to apologize, sorry about the shadow and the light situation. It's one of those overcast days and the sun is shining in very brightly at times and then not at other times. I should potentially move, but now I'm kind of sitting here. I wonder if I can make it better by, no, I don't think so. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, Remains of the Day. This is another book that I have heard about a bunch of times. As I said, at some point there is a movie based on the book, which I will watch. I haven't watched yet, but my intention is that I will watch it, but I don't think I'll get a chance to include my feelings about that in the vlog, because I really want to put it up tomorrow. But yeah, I was very aware of it, but Kazuo Ishiguro is one of Willow's favourite authors, and this is one of their favourite books from Kazuo Ishiguro, and so it just felt like it would be a good moment to read the book. It would be a good chance to read a classic and see what all the fuss is about. But yeah, I ended up finding it really, really good, really compelling, really beautifully written, and just a really lovely exploration, like I said, of reflection, thinking about your life, thinking about where things have gone, where they could have gone, why they went in certain directions. It was also really interesting. In the end, I think at the beginning I said I wasn't very interested in, like, he was very reflective, not just of himself and his life, but reflective of his role as a butler and what that is in English society and why. And I found that actually more interesting than I initially was. And I think because of the time period that it was written in the 50s, there had already been a lot of changes to the way the English hierarchical system, service, old country homes, all of those sorts of things. There's been such a big change from the beginning of the 20th century up until the 1950s in all those aspects. Both wars, just all sorts of things had changed so much about how those things functioned and how they worked together and whether they still did or not. And so it was really interesting to see him look back and talk about his father's time versus his time, and not just what made a good butler in the sense of like what makes you good at your specific job, running a household or, you know, welcoming guests or that sort of thing, but what makes you a good butler as like the front facing. It's kind of like, we don't really do it in here in Australia, so it's a bit hard for me to really make this comparison, but the feeling I get for like the whole concept of a hostess or something when you go to a restaurant or a club and there's someone who greets you, it's that like your initial impression where people are like trying to welcome you, trying to make you feel comfortable, trying to make you feel at home, but also impress you with their own wealth, their own, like, how good your experience is going to be. And so the butler was the first person that kind of, he ran the household. I mean, the housekeeper ran the household, but he ran everything. He was in charge of everything. And I think when I was younger, I always thought of a butler as being like, I open the door. But they had so many important roles within a large house. Opening the door was, they were in charge of greeting people. But that was so important because a person's first impression of somewhere is the first person they meet. So your butler needs to embody the type of house that you want to present. And so there's a lot of discussion about that, which actually I ended up finding quite interesting. And yeah, just in terms of like his discussions about his experiences as a butler during that time, during the war and after the war, and how those things affect, and also the importance of him being in that role and having certain access to information and various things that were going on in the house that were, yeah, very secret, and how that was such responsibility. And yeah, it was actually really interesting. Like I said, I really enjoyed it in the end, so I'm really glad that I read it. I'm really glad that seeing Willow being so passionate about Kazuo Ishiguro as an author in general, but The Rains of the Day in particular, pushed me to finally decide to pick it up, because it is a book that I have been aware of. It is a movie I've been aware of, so I have been like somewhat interested in it, but just not enough until now to pick it up. And it wasn't until I made the decision to include it in this vlog that I actually decided to pick it up. I don't know whether I'll pick up any more Kazuo Ishiguro. It's not at the top, he's not at the top of my list of I'm gonna go and get everything, but I now know that I enjoy his writing, and so potentially I will pick up some other things by him. But like I said, whoops, sorry. Like I said, it's not a priority at the moment. Partly because I don't own any of his books and I'd really like to read some more of my own TBR. But anyway, yeah, so those are my final thoughts on the vlog in general, on the books that I read, and my experiences once again with this whole concept of reading books that I was inspired by other people to read. I think I've had at least one book in all 3 vlogs so far that I have not intended to pick up, except that this person loved the book so much or was so interested in it or whatever that I felt compelled to pick it up because of the way they talked about it. Yeah, so I'm really happy to have continued with this vlog series. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the experience. I'm enjoying finding new things that are interesting. I'm enjoying finding out what people love about things. I'm enjoying figuring out where my tastes coincide with people, which is really fun. So yeah, I think this vlog has been quite successful for that. That's it. That's all my thoughts on all the books and my final thoughts on the vlog. So I guess let me know what you think. Let me know, have you read any of the books I read in this vlog? What you thought of them? Have you been inspired to pick up any of these books by myself, or in fact already previously by Willow? Please do, as I said, go and subscribe to Willow. I think they're an amazing booktuber, very thoughtful, have a lot of really interesting things to say. Definitely worth subscribing and experiencing their videos. And yeah, please comment any thoughts that you have in the description below. Also, if you know any booktubers that you don't think that I potentially am aware of, or booktubers that you think I have a lot in common with, that you would like to see me do a video like this about, or the other way around, someone that you think I don't have anything in common with but you'd like to see me pick up some books that they really like because of, you know, because of being out of the comfort zone and all that sort of thing, please comment all of that down below. If you'd like to leave me a comment but you don't know what, then leave me a cat emoji, because we have had some cameos from the cats this vlog. All of my social media details, and like I said, Willow's channel details, are listed in the description below, so please go and subscribe to Willow, and please go and check out my other social media, be friends with me over there, that'd be amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would absolutely love it if you would subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up. And yeah, like I said, thank you so much for joining me today. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.